today. We're doing a deep dive into the world of ADHD YouTubers.
Cool.
These are people who are not only living with ADHD, but they're using their platform to help other people thrive. So we've got a list of 13 channels that we're going to go through, and each of them has their own unique style and what they focus on and everything.
Got it.
And so what's really fascinating about YouTube is that it's this platform that can take something really complicated and make it a lot easier to understand.
Absolutely.
So when you're talking about neurodiversity, it's a really ideal platform because it's not just sharing the information. It's about building community and that sense of belonging, which is so important for people who often feel really misunderstood.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like this virtual support group combined with your own personal learning experience.
Yeah, I love that.
And speaking of personal, I know you were interested in that idea of personal stories and how powerful those can be, especially for people with ADHD.
Yeah.
So let's start our deep dive by looking at some YouTubers who have kind of turned their own lived experiences into this valuable resource for other people.
Cool.
So a good one to start with is How to ADHD.
Okay.
And this is hosted by Jessica McCabe.
Got it.
And her story is one that a lot of people can relate to. She wasn't diagnosed until she was in middle school.
Okay.
And she's had a lot of challenges in her life.
Yeah.
Dropping out of college and having trouble keeping a job.
Wow.
And it wasn't until she learned about her ADHD that things kind of started making sense for her.
Oh, that makes sense.
And you know what's amazing?
What?
She has this amazing YouTube channel with over 1.8 million subscribers.
That is wild.
Think about that.
Yeah.
That's how much people need this kind of content.
Yeah.
But it's not just her sharing her struggles.
Okay.
She also shares tips and strategies on how to manage ADHD. And she does it in a way that's fun to watch.
Awesome.
She uses humor and she's got all these visuals.
I like that.
Yeah. And so what makes her channel so effective is that she balances those personal stories with advice that's actually based on evidence and research and things like that.
That's great.
So it's not just
right.
her opinion. It's also backed up by real information.
I see.
Yeah. And so she's showing people they're not alone. And she's giving them ways that they can thrive, even though they have ADHD.
That's awesome.
So another channel that really uses personal stories, but does it in a different way, is ADHD Love.
Okay.
And this one's cool because it features two partners.
Okay.
One of them's neurotypical, and one of them has ADHD.
I see.
And they just kind of navigate life together and show what that's like. They have over 285,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And they're really popular because their videos are hilarious and so relatable. People just love watching them.
So what's their kind of angle? What are they?
So the humor that they use in their videos, it's not just there to be funny.
Okay.
It actually helps to break down some of the negative stereotypes around ADHD.
Got it.
So when they're showing the good and the bad parts of living with ADHD, but they're doing it in a lighthearted way, it helps people feel like it's normal.
Right.
And it opens up the door for them to talk about it more openly.
Yeah.
Now, if you're looking for a channel that's a little bit more personal, you might want to check out Me with ADHD.
Got it.
And this one's all about building a community and sharing those firsthand experiences of what it's like to have ADHD.
Okay.
And they focus a lot on people who are taking Adderall. So it's perfect if you're struggling with the emotional side of taking medication, or if you're just looking to connect with other people who understand what you're going through.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So they have about 54,900 subscribers.
Okay.
And, medication is super helpful for a lot of people with ADHD.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about the challenges and the side effects and things like that more.
Totally.
And that's exactly what this channel does.
Got it.
It provides that safe space for those conversations to happen, and people can feel like they belong and they're supported.
Yeah, I love that.
So those are just a few channels that are really focused on the personal experience and community building side of things.
Okay.
Now, I know you're also really interested in the practical tips and strategies for managing ADHD.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So let's move on to some channels that really excel in that area.
Okay, let's do it.
So when it comes to practical advice, one channel that really stands out is Kara McGill, ADHD coach plus multipotentialite. And Karen talks about some really interesting stuff, like why people with ADHD sometimes become underachievers.
Right.
Even though they have so much potential.
Yeah.
She talks about all the barriers in society and even the beliefs that people have about themselves that hold them back.
That's a great point.
Yeah. And so Karen doesn't just talk about these issues. She gives you like tools and techniques to actually overcome them.
Awesome.
So for example, she has videos on how to set up a yearly planner.
Oh, wow.
Which, let's be honest,
Yeah.
that can feel impossible for someone with ADHD.
Right.
But she breaks it down into little steps
Okay.
and makes it seem like something you can actually do.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she has like 116,000 subscribers, so she's definitely resonating with a lot of people.
That's awesome.
And another YouTuber who does a great job with this mix of insight and practical advice is Stuart James Anderson.
Okay.
He has this channel called ADHD Mastery.
Got it.
And when he first started,
Yeah.
he was just talking about his own experience with ADHD medication.
Okay.
But his channel has grown so much since then.
Cool.
Yeah. And it kind of shows how our understanding of ADHD is changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about managing symptoms anymore.
Right.
It's more about embracing like neurodiversity
Yeah.
and finding ways to use the unique strengths that come with ADHD.
Totally.
And that's exactly what Stuart does in his videos.
Cool.
He reaches over 106,000 subscribers.
Wow.
And he's helping people see ADHD in a whole new light.
That's great.
Yeah, instead of seeing it as like a negative thing,
Right.
he's showing them how it can be a source of like potential and possibility.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it can be really empowering to see it that way.
Absolutely.
So now we come to another creator who really embodies this positive and empowering approach to ADHD.
Okay.
Rick Green, he's the host of Rick Has ADHD.
Okay.
What's great about Rick is that he talks about those everyday challenges.
Yeah.
Like procrastination.
Right.
But he does it in a way that's upbeat and encouraging.
That's awesome.
It's like having this friend who's always there
Yeah,
to
yeah.
cheer you on,
Okay.
helping you find the funny side of things and giving you some helpful tips along the way.
I like that.
Yeah. And you can really tell that he has a background in TV and radio
Okay.
because he's so good at connecting with people and
Right.
making even the most boring topics fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And he has 107,000 subscribers, so clearly his approach is working.
That's great.
Speaking of connecting with an audience,
Okay.
let's talk about ADHD Jesse.
Got it.
It's hosted by Jesse J. Anderson.
Okay.
And at 45 years old,
Mm-hmm.
he brings a lot of experience to his channel, which has over 84,100 subscribers.
Wow.
And he offers all kinds of different content, from podcasts and interviews to time management tips and even just personal stories.
That's awesome.
His channel is a good example of how YouTubers are like really using all of YouTube's potential.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about making videos anymore.
Right.
It's about building this whole platform
Yeah.
that serves the community in so many ways.
I like that.
And it gives people lots of different ways to learn and get involved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like he's created this one-stop shop for everything ADHD.
Cool.
Yeah. And he's really good at catering to different learning styles and preferences.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so we've seen this theme with all the creators we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
There's so much diversity within the ADHD community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's reflected in all the different styles and approaches that these creators use.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And before we move on to some channels that focus on specific groups of people or like unique parts of ADHD,
Okay.
I'm curious, of all these channels we've talked about so far,
Mm-hmm.
which one has caught your attention the most?
That's a good question. Yeah, it's really cool to see how all these creators are making this information about ADHD so much easier to get to, you know? But what I think is even more amazing is how they focus on the different needs of people within the ADHD community.
You're totally right. It's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Right.
Take ADHD Dude, for example.
Okay.
It's a channel that's specifically for men and boys with ADHD. And they have 77,500 subscribers.
Okay.
And he goes way beyond just sharing his own story.
Okay.
He really digs into like the research and treatment recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And he even offers training for parents because he knows how important it is for them to support their sons.
Yeah, that's a really smart approach, you know, because studies have shown that ADHD can show up differently in boys than in girls.
Yeah.
So boys might seem more hyperactive or impulsive,
Okay.
and that can lead to people misunderstanding them or maybe not getting diagnosed as quickly.
Right.
So by focusing on those specific challenges,
Yeah.
ADHD Dude is giving really helpful resources to both the people with ADHD and their families.
It's like he's making this space where boys and men with ADHD can connect with each other and learn and feel understood.
Yeah.
And that's super important for getting rid of the stigma around ADHD and helping them feel good about themselves.
Absolutely.
And then when we start thinking about adulthood,
Okay.
there are a whole new set of challenges that come up.
Right, like what?
Well, like managing money, keeping your house in order, making relationships work.
Yeah.
All that stuff can be really hard for people with ADHD.
Totally.
And that's where a channel like Adulting with ADHD can be really helpful.
Okay.
It has about 7,420 subscribers.
Okay.
And it focuses on giving adults with ADHD the tools they need to deal with those everyday challenges.
I see.
It's like having a coach in your pocket,
Yeah.
giving you tips and sharing stories that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes all that adulting stuff seem a little less overwhelming.
Right.
And of course, we can't forget about relationships.
Yeah, those can be tough.
They can be really tricky when ADHD is involved.
For sure.
We already talked about ADHD love
Yeah.
and how they bring this lighthearted perspective to being in a neurotypical ADHD relationship.
Right.
But there's another channel called Am I Neurodivergent,
Okay.
hosted by Struan, and he was diagnosed with both autism and ADHD later in life.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and his story is so powerful because it shows just how challenging it can be to get a late diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine going through life feeling like you don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
Struggling with things that other people seem to do so easily.
Right.
And then finally realizing there's a reason for all of that.
Yeah, that must be tough.
His channel has 2,610 subscribers.
Okay.
And it helps other adults figure out how to navigate work and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's showing them that even though they got diagnosed later,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to hold them back.
I like that.
Yeah, it's like he's speaking for all those people who've felt misunderstood or like they've been overlooked.
Right.
And the fact that he talks about both autism and ADHD is really insightful because there's a lot of overlap between those two
For
conditions.
sure.
So understanding how they connect can be super helpful for people who identify with both.
Exactly. It's all about understanding neurodiversity better and realizing that these conditions exist on a spectrum.
Right.
There's no one right way to have ADHD or autism. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's experience is unique, and it's so important to find the resources and support that fits their needs.
And speaking of specific needs, we have to talk about the parents who are raising kids with ADHD.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They face their own set of challenges.
Right.
And they need support, too, as they go through this journey with their children.
Absolutely. Being a parent to a child with ADHD can be so rewarding, but it definitely comes with its own demands.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where someone like Amy Marie Hahn comes in. She's the activated ADHD mama.
Got it.
And while she might not have a huge following on YouTube with just 627 subscribers,
Okay.
she's built this huge community on Instagram.
Wow.
Where she specifically helps moms with ADHD who are trying to manage their homes and their families.
I love that about her.
Yeah.
She's all about empowerment.
Right.
It's not just about giving tips on how to handle the chaos at home.
Okay.
She also talks about how important it is for moms with ADHD to take care of themselves and be kind to themselves.
That's a really important message. Yeah, because you can't give to others if you're running on empty.
Exactly.
And that message of self-care is important for all parents, really,
For sure.
whether they have ADHD or not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's starting this ripple effect of positive change
I love that.
by empowering moms to not only manage their own ADHD,
Yeah.
but also create a more supportive and understanding environment for their kids.
That's awesome.
And so we've looked at channels that are specifically for certain groups,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also some amazing creators who offer a broader perspective on what it means to live with ADHD.
Right.
And they talk about topics that connect with lots of different people.
Okay, cool.
One example is Hidden ADHD, my inattentive ADHD experience.
Okay.
They have 19,500 subscribers.
Got it.
And as the name suggests,
Yeah.
this channel is all about the inattentive type of ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
which is more about difficulty focusing and paying attention and getting organized,
Okay.
rather than being hyperactive or impulsive. And this is really important because inattentive ADHD can sometimes be missed or misdiagnosed.
Yeah, especially in girls and women who might not show those more obvious signs of ADHD.
Exactly. And by shining a light on this subtype,
Mm-hmm.
this channel is providing valuable insights and coping strategies for people who struggle with inattentiveness.
So it's about raising awareness and challenging those old ideas of what ADHD is supposed to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
And another channel that takes a broad approach to well-being for people with ADHD is Adhd.
Okay,
And they have 25,400 subscribers.
got it.
They talk about things like adult ADHD and depression and mental hygiene.
Okay.
Because they recognize that mental health and ADHD are all connected.
I really appreciate that holistic perspective because it acknowledges that ADHD doesn't just exist on its own.
Right.
It often comes along with other mental health issues like anxiety and depression. And dealing with those co-occurring issues is really important for overall well-being. And so our television provides helpful resources and insights in those areas, encouraging people to take care of themselves and to seek professional help when they need it.
It's like they're saying, hey, ADHD is a part of you, but it doesn't define you.
Right.
There's so much more to each person, and taking care of your mental health is crucial for living well with ADHD.
It's all about finding that balance between managing the ADHD symptoms and taking care of your emotional well-being.
Exactly.
And that brings us to something you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, what's up?
The importance of understanding not just what ADHD is,
Right.
but also what it isn't.
Yeah.
There are a lot of misconceptions and myths out there about ADHD.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And sometimes those misconceptions can actually do more harm than good.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to be careful when you're looking for information about ADHD.
Right.
While personal stories can be really relatable and powerful,
Yeah.
you have to remember that everyone's experience is different.
Mhm.
What works for one person might not work for another. And it's crucial to think critically about any advice or strategies that you come across.
And that's why these YouTube creators are so valuable.
Yeah.
They're not just sharing their own experiences, they're also connecting people with evidence-based information and resources. They encourage their audience to think for themselves and make informed decisions about their own well-being.
That's a really important point, and it reminds me that the information about ADHD is always changing.
Right.
New research comes out, new perspectives emerge, and new people join the conversation. So it's important to stay curious and keep exploring different sources of information.
Yeah.
What we've talked about today is really just the beginning.
Right.
It's like a curated collection to spark your interest and guide you on your own journey of discovery.
Exactly. It's like we've given you a map to navigate this big and ever-changing world of ADHD knowledge.
Yeah.
But the real adventure is in exploring those unknown areas and finding the resources and perspectives that really speak to you.
Absolutely. So as we start to wrap up this deep dive,
I'm curious to hear what you're thinking.
Okay.
Out of all the creators we've talked about today,
Yeah.
which ones stand out to you the most? Whose stories or approaches have really resonated with you personally?
Wow. It's amazing, right? Going through all these ADHD YouTubers,
Yeah.
it's like opened up this whole world, like all these different voices and experiences and support.
And what's really cool is how they create these communities.
Yeah.
They're not just talking to people. They're like building these connections and spaces for everyone to talk and feel normal about having ADHD. It's like this online support group where people can share what they're going through, celebrate their successes, and learn from each other.
You know, when you mentioned that the information about ADHD is always changing,
Yeah.
it made me think about what's still missing.
Oh, that's interesting. Like, what do you mean?
Well, like what perspectives are we not hearing?
Right.
What topics need to be talked about more? Because as awesome as these YouTubers are,
They can't possibly cover everything about ADHD, right?
that's so true. There's always room for more voices and different points of view.
Exactly.
Like we've seen a lot about ADHD in Western cultures. But what about people in other parts of the world?
Yeah.
How do different cultures and societies see and deal with ADHD?
That's such a great question.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about intersectionality, too.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about how ADHD shows up differently in boys and girls. But what about people of color with ADHD?
Right.
Or people from the LGBTQ plus community?
Yeah.
Their experiences might be completely different, and it's important to hear their stories.
Absolutely. Their voices need to be heard. And speaking of unique challenges,
Yeah.
I'd love to see more about ADHD and other conditions like dyslexia or dyspraxia.
Okay.
Because having multiple diagnoses can make things even more complicated.
All right.
And understanding how those conditions work together is super helpful for people and their families.
It's like we're constantly peeling back the layers of ADHD,
Yeah.
finding all these new complexities.
It's a journey for sure.
And that's why it's so important to keep an open mind, be willing to learn and grow,
Right.
and remember that there's no one right way to have or manage ADHD.
Exactly. It's about embracing all those different experiences and perspectives and knowing that everyone's journey with ADHD is unique and important.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this.
Yeah.
We all have the power to change how people see and understand ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
We can all help to get rid of the stigma, fight for better support systems, and make the world a more welcoming place for neurodivergent people.
And remember, this deep dive was just the beginning.
Right.
Keep exploring, keep finding those voices and resources that speak to you, and keep being part of the conversation about ADHD.
Exactly. And don't forget, you're not alone in this.
Yeah.
There are so many creators, experts, and people who've been there themselves ready to support and empower you.
That's awesome.
So keep learning, keep connecting, and keep thriving.
I love it.